you get. You are the best woman I've ever had. No one fits me better. No one fits me better than you. No one fits me that you do. No one fits me better than no one fits me better. I said no one fits me better than you. No one fits me that you do. No one fits me better than you. We're not done, not yet. Morning comes and we're coming again. Like a freight train going off the tracks. With your long short nails still hanging on my back. I say no one fits me. No one fits me. No one comes close. No one else will do. No one fits me better than you.
Okay, testing. Are we live? Yes, we are. Okay. Hello and welcome to Larsen Live. It is June 4th. It's a hot summer day. How are we, people? We opened up with Airbourne. No one fits me better than you. Some nice Aussie pub rock. Sorry. I had to... Yeah, sorry for the little replay here. Just gotta mute that. Yeah, so that was Airbourne. No one fits me better than you. Some nice Aussie pub rock because, hey, sometimes you're just in the mood for loud, aggressive, mindless dude rock. Speaking of guitar music, I literally a minute before this stream started, I had a new student, blonde boy from Florida, a guitar student, and yeah, let me tell you, he's no Tom Petty. I'll tell you that. Woof, that kid sucked. But I will work with him the best I can. Anyway, it's June, and you know what that means. That's right, state-enforced homosexuality. Rainbow flags as far as the eye can see. All the corporate logos are changing to rainbow colors, but curiously not the branches that are based in the Middle East for some strange reason. I mean, we're inclusive and tolerant unless it threatens to hurt our profits in a region full of homophobia. Anyway, let's get right to it then, shall we? A librarian defends a book on prostitution that was placed in a middle school library because there are several sex workers who are students in this school, according to the librarian. This is a middle school, might I add. In Northern Virginia, the school is not specified for some mysterious reason. There is a book in the library which says prostitution is a job like being a clerk or a teacher. When a teacher questioned the librarian about this book being in the library, the librarian said, well, there are kids who do sex work, and this validates their choices. This is a middle school. I've said before on this podcast that I am in favor of the legalization of prostitution, not because I see it as a job worthy of respect, because it isn't, but because I see it as a necessary evil for society. The Anglosphere is sexually jacked up. Women are castrating harridans, and men are incels and frotteurs. It's not good. Legalizing prostitution would remedy a lot of this, in my opinion. All I'm saying is you don't see incels and mutual jack-off societies in a place like France or Italy or Brazil that has legalized whoring. If men could get a quick bit of banging cheap, that would rob women of a lot of their sexual power, and yeah, I think society needs that. There's a lot of engagement from the audience. I always like to encourage people to talk just so I feel like I'm not talking to myself like an idiot. But yes, back to the prostitution. Let me remind you that for all the bloviating about white supremacist murderers, the incels have the high score in mass killing. Incels of all races have been tearing it up. I have discussed this before. And not only would legalizing it benefit the sexless dweebs of society, it would benefit the hookers by allowing them to work independently and safely and not have to be enthralled to some whoremonger. Yeah, this is another issue I have. I do sympathize with sex workers, but my sympathy is entirely with the ladies. The whoremongers are absolute scum, and notice my use of the term whoremonger. I have discussed this also. I despise the term pimp because it sounds like some cutesy bullshit, and to be frank, I don't think abusive drug-pushing slave drivers deserve to have cutesy names. I mean, it's a dirty business, but let's try to mitigate that dirt as much as possible. Okay. Biff Slamkovich asks, does anybody know funny books for elementary schools that make them better readers and laugh at the same time? Beyond that of the Captain Underpants series. I actually have a fellow teacher here. That's very interesting. Yeah, I mean, for years I've been advocating they should put Pulp Fiction in the school libraries, but that's neither here nor there. But anyway, yeah, back to this elementary school thing, or middle school thing. These are adult women. I sure as hell do not approve of middle schoolers doing sex work. You know what I call a teenage sex worker? An abused and trafficked child, and the abuser or trafficker needs to be placed in front of a wall and executed yesterday. In any society that produces any sort of authority figure that is okay with teenage sex work is a society that needs to get a severe kick in the dick. Give me 1 second. I'm getting a text message. I just got to deal with this. Okay, this text is almost done. Okay, similarly to discussions of prostitution, I was a bit distracted there. J.D. Vance, writer of Hillbilly Elegy and the Ohio Senate candidate, I can't comment on his book because I haven't read it. It has called, well, anyway, he has called, not the book, but he has called for an outright ban of pornography. I'm going to have to disagree with you there, Mr. Vance. I'm moderately no fat myself, so I don't engage in the prawns on a regular basis, but I am against an outright ban. For starters, there's that pesky First Amendment thing. And secondly, pornography is a lot like prostitution, that it's an outlet for the losers of society. An evil, yes, but a necessary evil. I mean, you don't want the sexless dweebs being all amped up and aimless. That's a very bad thing. And I don't know why I have to tell people this. I don't know if you people have noticed, but I am running a little bit of an experiment now where I'm holding the microphone up to my face instead of having it on the table. I don't know, does it sound better or worse? Maybe I'll put it back on the table because I want to hold my arm up for like an hour. Okay, speaking of the ladies, now the Johnny Depp trial has come to its conclusion, and he won. Well, technically, they're both getting a settlement, but yeah, he won the bigger of the two. Dare I say it? Yeah, I'm going to say it. The family court system will remember this as the day they almost caught Captain Jack Sparrow. Well, good for Mr. Depp, I suppose. 15 million in damages is 15 million. Now, if only he could make movies that weren't crap again. More specifically, it appears that both Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard were legally defamed according to the law. So she's going to get $2 million, but hey, score one for the dudes. And let's see how long it takes for the Heard party to try to paint her as the victim here. It's already going on now, actually. Some woman for The Guardian, a Moira Donegan, wrote this clunker of a headline. This verdict was an orgy of misogyny. Oh my God, it's practically like the Holocaust, a horocaust, if you will. I'm dripping with sarcasm. But yeah, there is a glorious parade of society making the case for its own destruction today, so let's move on with it. But first, I check the chat and literally nothing. That's wonderful. Okay, but yeah, let's move on. Hey kids, do you remember the utterly cowardly and contemptible reaction that the Uvalde Sheriff's Department had to that school shooter last week? Well, the police chief, Pete Arredondo, has been sworn in as a city council member behind closed doors. I mean, you want to talk about failing upwards. Yeah, presumably the swearing in was done behind closed doors because the people would stone that poltroon son of a bitch otherwise. Like, I'm sorry. What the deuce is going on here? A man makes every mistake possible in stopping a school shooter and he gets rewarded for it. I mean, imagine if I had that insane kind of job security. I mean, imagine if any working stiff had that kind of ironclad job security. I mean, as a teacher, I get punished if I discipline a kid for being a pain in the ass. But wow, imagine if I let them die, I could get promoted. This right here, this is a major part of what's wrong with America today. Seems like nobody gets punished for their failure. I mean, nobody important at least. I forget who said it, but somebody said, like, if a soldier loses his rifle, he gets punished more severely than a general who loses a battle. Yeah, did any of the generals who botched the Afghanistan withdrawal get punishment? Did the banks and financial firms that tanked the economy, did they get any punishment? I mean, as far as I can tell, there's no skin in the game. Nobody's putting anything on the line here. I cannot be the only person who notices this. You know, I failed and got fired from several jobs before I found the teaching thing. I started my music business and I found something that I was good at doing for money. I mean, imagine if I was still working as a personal trainer. Like, I failed to get a single paying client, which is true. But then the company rewarded me and promoted me to assistant manager anyway. That's what we have going on here. Makes you hang your head to believe it. Okay, Biff talking about the school shooting thing. They tried to blame the teacher for propping the door open to get food for her class. She came back and kicked the rock at the door, but it did not lock. So it's the teacher's fault. Well, again, I think it's the police department's fault more than anything. I don't really blame the teacher per se. Yeah, just out of a little bit of curiosity here, I should also point out that the police chief Arredondo looks like Emperor Xerxes from the movie 300 if he was really fat. So Xerxes after 300 boxes of donuts. More in the clown show that is modern America. Uh, Football player beats trans woman to death and is acquitted. Yes, indeed. VTech footballer Isimemen Etute, which was that Nigerian? I don't know, something. He went out on a date with what he thought was a blonde woman, but it turned out to be a trans woman. It was a man. Finding out that she was a he, Mr. Etute flipped out and beat the crap out of her, and she died. This only happened after they had sex. I don't know. I've seen pictures of Jerry Smith, the trans woman, and it seems pretty obvious that it was a guy. Also, almost as if Etute was secretly into the gay stuff, but he beat the guy to save face for himself after his teammates found out. Anyway, this went to trial, and he was acquitted on all charges, shockingly. Okay, the trans panic defense, which the LGBT crowd hates so very much, is apparently still useful in court. Now, first of all, let me make something quite clear for little Susie Q. I have nothing against anything that led up to this violent fustigation. Interracial sex and dating is fine in my book. So is sex changes and, dating the trans people and blah, 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 all that. Yeah, I'm cool. It's all good in the hood. However, this case is going to be most interesting in setting legal precedent. Namely, who's going to win here? What I mean is the progressive stack, where certain peoples are given more or less weight in discussion in society, more meaning and worth in the eyes of, the wokies, based on how oppressed they are by society. So what I mean is the black guy who's likely an immigrant going from his name going to be seen as the victim here? Or is the gay white man going to be seen as the victim here? Do bear in mind that all parties agree that the white trans woman lied on her dating profile. She claimed to be a biological woman, so one could argue that this is a form of rape by deception. Buck breaking by deception. What? Yeah. The wokies believe that A, there's too many black men in jail, and B, society must protect trans women from the pervasive violence against them. The problem not being discussed is that much of that pervasive anti-trans violence is committed by black men, and most of the victims are black trans women. Now, as I have discussed, And anybody could tell you the overwhelming majority of crime is intraracial. So most black people are victimized by other black people, most white people are victimized by other white people, and so on and so forth. So Mr. Etute claimed that he saw the victim make a reach towards a nightstand and he was afraid he was going to get a knife or a gun or something. So therefore, he had to stomp him out real bad. I mean, can we at least agree that the trans panic thing doesn't just come out of thin air? I mean, when you lie about who you really are to trick people into having sex with you, that is a form of sexual assault. Maybe that's why people get angry. Again, not that I approve of killing somebody, but rape isn't good either. And isn't it just polite to tell people about something like this? I mean, to give you a story from my life, I was going out with a woman, a month or two ago. Actually, probably, yeah, like a month ago. And, it was good for a while. And then yeah, on the second or third date, she's like, oh, by the way, I have a son and I'm like 5 years older than I told you. Like, verp, record scratch. This is ending now. Verp. Yeah, thanks for telling me, woman. And, that's a relatively minor thing compared to rape by deception. And, for God's sake, like, the wokest, they hate the movie Revenge of the Nerds because, oh no, Skolnick puts on a Darth Vader costume and he has sex with the blonde cheerleader under the guise of being her boyfriend. So that's bad, but, a trans woman or even just a gay dude who hasn't transitioned but dresses like a woman can commit rape by deception, and that's just dandy. On Twitter, they're like, a trans woman is a woman. She doesn't have to tell her sexual partners what she is. Oh, okay, so rape by deception wearing a Darth Vader costume, that's the worst thing ever, and we should relegate Revenge of the Nerds to the dustbin of history. But rape by deception with regards to gender is stunning and brave and magnanimous. Come on, even Siskel and Ebert like Revenge of the Nerds. Did you think we were done talking about black fisticuffs? No. The New York Times is pushing black Asian solidarity again, despite, objective reality. And I quote, people think the communities are in conflict, but they share solidarity. And meanwhile, I'm watching a clip from the other day of a group of black men holding down an old Asian guy and kicking his ass. Yeah, we all remember that Stop Asian Hate thing that suddenly stopped all of a sudden when people realized who exactly was perpetuating the Asian hate. Why does this happen? Here we go again. It's the same thing I always talk about. Asians are seen as soft targets. Once again, all Asian problems will be solved with a liberal dose of hardening the fuck up. Or to use my own parlance, become the yellow peril. I'm tired of saying this. You're all tired of hearing this. I don't care how many times I have to say this. I don't know how many times I have to say this. But if every Asian man looked like Bolo Young, the bullying and abuse and emasculation, humiliation and mockery would end in 5 seconds. Maybe I ought to put that on a t-shirt or something. Anyway, let's talk about this stupid NYT article. It's the same old gray lady crap about, well, we're not all college-educated nerds. There's like Montagnards and Hmong who came on rafts. Ugh. And again, I will never understand why the model minority thing is bad. Like, oh no, we're successful and well-to-do and educated and peaceable. How terrible. EW says, sup, Mr. Halleck. Hello to you too, EW. I find this whole thing incredibly tiresome. I'll let you people in on a little secret. Very few people in the Asian community actually listen to these woke liberal Asians. And yes, I am still awaiting my gig at the New York Times writing for the Asian whatever desk. I think it goes without saying that I would be infinitely better, more relatable, more down with the struggle, such as it is, than whatever noodle-armed Greenwich Village Asian liberal they hire. Speaking of, K-pop group BTS came to the White House to discuss inclusion and hate crimes. I'm curious as to how specific they got. Excuse me, Press Secretary Jean-Pierre, Vice President Harris, who exactly is committing the crimes in your country? Just shut up and dance! Then again, there is something I find inherently distasteful about a boy band coming to a foreign country to discuss policy. Like, imagine if we did that to South Korea. Hello, former President Park Geun-hye. We're going to discuss the rampant corruption of your administration and your ties to the 8 Goddesses cult. Here's Justin Bieber to talk about that with you. And yes, I'm aware that Mr. Bieber is sort of like a rotten hot potato that America and Canada try to pass between each other. Yeah, I'd also like to point out that as far as I'm aware, the members of BTS were exempt from the otherwise mandatory conscription in South Korea, which is deeply ironic since their fan base literally calls itself the Army. Oh, well, they can't be conscripted. They're such beautiful little twinks. And no, I still can't name a single one of their songs. Like I've said repeatedly, the only exposure I've ever had to them or K pop in general was last summer. I went out with a young lady, and by young, I mean she was like 2 years older than me, who was into it. And we ended up banging on the first date in the back of the Larsen mobile because nothing says sexy like the back of a 12-year-old Honda. But hey, as the advertisements say, you meet the nicest people on a Honda. Yep, the Super Cub is still the most popular motor vehicle of all time. Anyway, yeah, that relationship ended almost as quickly as it began. Maybe she was disappointed that I was more overtly masculine than the Asian flower boy she likes. I don't know. I find it a little strange that like a 33-year-old woman is into that stuff, but all in all, I don't dislike BTS or any K-poppers. It's not my thing. I mean, there's a market for it. I'm happy for their success. I wouldn't begrudge anybody their success. How much do you want to bet that mumbly Joe Biden thought that they were like the new kids on the block or something? Yeah, the Wahlbergs. You're really popular with those little girls whose hair I sniff. How do you do, fellow kids? EW says, I would much prefer to have boys to men discuss policy in North Korea. Well, I mean, Dennis Rodman hangs out with Kim Jong Un, so yeah, I'm sure he could arrange for boys to men to go there. Yeah, but speaking of the absolute clown show that is American race relations, Oak Park, Illinois, which is for far as I'm aware, it's a pretty wealthy suburb of Chicago. It's doing race-based grading and detracking, just like San Francisco. The press release literally said, and I quote, students of color can't get ahead with this grading. Whoops, you said the quiet part loud and the loud part quiet. Yeah, is nobody going to address how this is like the most racist thing you can imagine? I mean, they're just upfront with it. They're saying that like non-Asian minority students are too dumb to do well in school, so we have to get rid of grading and stuff. If I were black or Latino or, whatever, like I'd be pretty offended at the notion that I was inherently too dumb to compete with white and Asian students. But it's not racism when it's done with good intentions. Okay, another quote. Students can no longer be punished for skipping class, misbehaving, or not turning in their homework. Because apparently, black people can't be bothered to show up on time and do the assignments and not act a fool in class. Gee, I wonder why America's falling behind. I wonder why America can't build a high speed railway. I wonder why America's bridges fall down. I wonder. I discussed this a few months ago, and I recently reposted it. But this right here is why American education, what's the word? Sucks the big one. Like, let's break it down, shall we? We start off with a needlessly wordy bullshit name for this race-based plan. Transformative education, professional development, and grading. And by the way, anything in the public school system that has the phrase professional development, that's a great heaping helping of bullshit, just FYI. This initiative was presented by the Assistant Superintendent of Student Learning, Lori Fiorenza. So here we have some useless sinecure hack who's probably never been in the classroom coming up with some fruity plan. We need to exclude variables that disproportionately hurt the grades of black students, which is all the stuff I was just talking about. Okay, so yeah, it's school district kind of sucks. A pretty big rate of failure of the SATs for the BIPOC students. Like 77% of black students fail the SAT there. But apparently asking that black students cut the crap out was apparently taken off the table as an option. This is it. This is the anarcho-tyranny squeeze in action. From the bottom up, we have the feral yahoos who refuse to be educated. They can likely never be educated, at least this generation, and they're being given free rein to turn the schools into charnel pits. From the top down, we have the little noodle-armed weenies, little weesh liberal do-gooders who are like, it's my duty to save the poor benighted black race. I'm gonna remove all restrictions on them. That'll magically make them successful. I'm a good person. Yeah, I know. If you gave teachers the legal right to just punch one student in the face a day, just one punch, that would do more to solve the problem than all of this crap. I mean, not that I'm advocating punching students. I mean, that's a wild flight of childish fantasy. But you know what else is a wild flight of childish fantasy? The notion that removing grading and discipline will magically make the schools better. Not to be outdone by all this race nonsense. American gender relations are crap too. A medical doctor confirms, shock of shock, that trans woman swimmer Leah Thomas does in fact have a strength and stamina advantage over the actual women. In other news, the sun came out today. Hey Siri, what's the endocrine system? What's a steroid? The natural steroids, I should say. And this leads me to another article, one that I very much agreed with. What America needs is a liberalism that builds. Yeah, I agree, Ezra Klein of the New York Times. As I have stated repeatedly, I do still retain, some amount of liberal sympathies of an old school, economic and class sort of bent. And yes, I do respect the likes of Franklin Roosevelt or John F. Kennedy or even Lyndon Johnson. I mean, say what you will about their policies, they got it done. They got stuff done. This also reflects how liberalism was once something aspirational and uplifting and pioneering and exploratory, which is kind of the point that Ezra Klein was making, and I agree with it. Nowadays, liberals don't want to explore anything other than their own anuses as they merrily drive the country down the crapper. This is a really low turnout today. I don't know what's going on. I mean, whatever. It is what it is. I have a piece to say, and I'm going to say it. Yeah, it does annoy me very much that America can't seem to do anything anymore. But I digress to something that is entirely unrelated. A poll shows that 45% of San Francisco residents plan on leaving in the next year or two. 30% of those residents say that crime is the reason. No, you people, you voted for this. You voted for the detracking and the decriminalization of crime. You made your bed, now you gotta lie in it. I hate having to say this, since I do love the city of San Francisco. It is a beautiful city. The architecture, the city planning, the restaurants, the museums, the culture, everything. It is a world-class city that can stand up to Paris, London, Tokyo, anywhere. Or rather, it could have at one point. But you can't see that beauty now under the deluge of human feces. Then again, I suppose you could say the same thing about the entire state of California. There's a reason why the hippie movement started there. I mean, California is Elysium. It is the eternal spring. But with the eternal spring comes the eternal grasshopper. The grasshopper and the ants, Aesop's fables, and so forth. It's amazing how the city can have the highest real estate prices in the country, if not the world, but also be a literal third world shithole. Well, let's hope San Francisco can clean itself up before it becomes America's Alexandria. I am Ozymandias, the King of Kings. And society continues to decline. Lunchflation. What is lunchflation? It is the absurd phenomenon that buying food is becoming more and more expensive. Eat your bugs, wagey. Yeah, no, all things considered, if it's really not all that expensive, I say it's not all that expensive to just buy, food. Just buy your staples. Don't eat crap. You'll do fine. In entirely unrelated news, there was an egg farm fire, a chicken farm in Minnesota that produces, I think it said like 1 million eggs a week. It's burnt down, along with tens of thousands of laying hens also died in the fire. Gee, it seems like a complete coincidence that all the farms and food processing plants are burning down all of a sudden. Hmm. Oh, and yesterday there was a fertilizer factory in India that burned down mysteriously. Boy, this is going to have severe effects on the global food supply chain, but this is all a complete coincidence, I'm sure. This presumably ties into the fact that the UK compulsory schools are going to introduce bugs to school lunches, which is just wonderful. And to be fair, it's probably not any less healthy than your average school lunch. Look, I've advocated that bug eating should be an option many times, but it just shouldn't be the only option. And yes, the leaders do want to take both meat and good roughage away from the peasantry. I mean, it enrages them so much, the idea that the little people can eat good food, maybe. They want to strip that from us by any means necessary. Did you miss feudalism? Because it's coming back. I hope you ladies enjoy Ius Prima Noctis because Lord Douchington is taking your virginity whether you want it or not. Speaking of the United Kingdom, the Queen's Platinum Jubilee is coming up, and I have no idea what that means. 3 girlfriends ago, was it super into that Anglo shit, as I've mentioned. So, were I so inclined, I could ask her, but then why would I ask one of my exes about anything like this? The good people of the old Grey Isle are going all out here, putting up flags and bunting and weird cardboard cutouts of Her Majesty. Like in their own homes, they're putting up these cutouts. Imagine having to wake up to the stern gaze of Queen Bess from across the room. Yeah, I mean, as a matter of principle, I'm not really into the flag waving crap in general, mainly because I feel it's kind of redundant. Like, I can be patriotic without a flag. Like, oh boy, a flag. That reminds me of what country I live in. Hurdy dur. So even flying the flag is a bit overplayed to me. I couldn't even imagine putting up a cardboard cutout of my feudal overlord in my own home. Yeah, and speaking of the glorious future our betters want for us, the World Economic Forum asks, what do we do with the useless people? Probably some combination of drugs and computer games. Those are all direct quotes, by the way. Useless people, direct quote. Probably some combination of drugs and video games is also a direct quote. In other words, automation and mechanization in the future economy is going to put a lot of grunt laboring losers out of work. We can't have those people wandering around aimlessly causing trouble. So, what to do? Dope them up and give them the vidya. I mean, look, this is going to be a big problem the way that the future economy is not going to have a place for hundreds of millions of people. So, in a way, I can't fault the World Economic Forum for raising the question at the very least. But with that being said, the fact that they're explicitly described as being useless people, that's a bit disturbing to me. It's a pretty short jump from useless people to life undeserving of life, to use the Nazi parlance. And of course, these are also the people who eat the best foods, while the peasantry are supposed to eat rice and beans and crickets. And even if they're not planning a full on global, like, culling, which I don't think they're going to do, because what fun is being what fun is being the uncontested ruler of the earth if you don't have your chattel slaves? But yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. But what exactly is the best case scenario here? A technological dystopia where humanity is numbed by video games and drugs and porn to a dull mealworm eating obeisance? Is this the future you want for society? Oh, and by the way, did you think that you could take your mind off your misery by getting a little pet for yourself? Nah, no, you can't, Wagey. Because the powers that be are calling for a culling of small pets like rats and guinea pigs. Because for some reason, this is going to stop the monkeypox. Well, I mean, these animals are susceptible to the pox, so therefore we have to get rid of them so they don't spread it. Remember how the majority of monkeypox spreads? Oh, that's right, from unprotected gay sex between men. Once again, God forbid that the gays practice a little self control and use condoms. We gotta kill all the rodents instead. There's a very dirty joke I can make here about all this, but I'm not going to. Because I'm better than that, and you people deserve better than that too. But let's get right back to the discussion of the techno dystopian hellscape we live in. And by discussion, I of course mean me talking. Because I'm getting disturbingly low turnout today, but whatever. Tomorrow I have a video, and that's going to be pretty good, I think. Anyway, I've said this before on this very podcast, and I will say it again. The powers that be may want me to put on the metaverse goggles and live that snow crash life of constant video games and porn and physical weakness and obsequiousness. I will put my foot down and say no. I will never live the Bugman pod life. I will never forsake the sun of my skin, the strain of my thews, the warmth of a woman's flesh. I choose meaningful work. I choose creativity. I choose to homestead, which I'm currently working towards setting up. I choose to learn martial arts and play music and feel dirt under my fingernails. I will not eat the bugs. I will not live in your pod. I will have a real family, and we'll get to that in a second. I will make my mark upon the world, the real world. Oh, and look at what came up this very morning. Tamagotchi kids. Could the future of parenthood be having virtual metaverse children? What in the actual hell? Hey, Wagey, you don't want to have real kids. You don't want to have real sex. You want to have vidya children. Didn't we go through this already with The Sims and Second Life? You know, I'm not going to lie. The selfish bastard in me is kind of in favor of this. Because obviously, I will never submit to the metaverse. And having the dregs of society subsumed to their fake tech world will leave more real world for me and my like minded fellows. But on the other hand, the humanist in me is deeply upset by the thought of humanity being reduced to a bunch of essentially infants, suckling at the trough of fake experience and fake food and fake everything else. Every day is a petty little rebellion against the modern world, and I rebel proudly. Snow Crash was not an instruction manual, Mr. Zuckerberg. Vaguely related to this, now we're getting into the goofy nonsense part of the news. The Infinifats. What is an Infinifat? Well, to explain that, we have to explain the categories of fatness that the fat acceptance people have made up for themselves. There's small fat, mid fat, super fat, and Infinifat. Infinifat is a 6X or above, size 34 or above, in dress size, or a torrid 6. I mean, do I really have to specify dress size? I mean, it's only women that do this. I don't know why you need those categories of fatness. I mean, didn't Gabriel Iglesias categorize fatness perfectly fine? You're going from husky to dinosaur noises. Anyway, yeah, the Infinifats, the world's lamest superhero team. But yeah, a small way to improve society goes out to my men out there. Stop having sex with fat women. Look, I know you're horny. I know you're desperate. But please go home and rub one out instead of slinging dick to a woman that doesn't deserve it. You are inflating her sense of self, and that's not good. And yes, I realize that as I say this, I'm sounding very vaguely like that asshole from a couple of weeks ago who was like, yeah, women shouldn't ride horses. It's like masturbation. Yeah, guess who had to run his stupid mouth again? And I quote Mr. Alpha Masculinity here: "Women are children; they cannot be rational." That's taking a little far, isn't it? Yeah, even when I was writing for like ROK, I mean, I was not quite as hard edged as some of the keyboard alpha male sexless chodes who wrote for that website. I mean, despite what I say, I mean, I do have some respect for the fair sex. I mean, I've never believed in, Rain, my woman hamster, they need men to guide them, Rain. I don't know. I've never really bought that, and yeah, this dweeb. I don't know how this guy has like a following, but yeah, he's pretty lame. Jeff Westcamp says we're becoming more of a cyberpunk dystopia every day. Yes, we are. It's why I have that picture in my meme reel of the villain from Pirates of the Caribbean saying, you best start believing in cyberpunk dystopia because you're in one. Yeah, speaking of Jack Sparrow winning his court case. Yeah, and speaking of the broads, we have some discussion of famous women to talk about. First of all, the Mona Lisa was defaced at the Louvre. No, don't worry, the painting was not. The case it is surrounded by was defaced. It was attacked with cake by a man wearing a disguise to look like an old lady. I mean, the painting is covered in bulletproof glass, so, no harm is really done here. Why did this man do what he did? Because he was protesting environmental degradation, and yeah, I have no idea what the Louvre in general and the Mona Lisa in particular has to do with any of this, but whatever. Speaking of women, June 1st was Vagina and Vulva Day in Canada. A lady speaker in the parliament. We need to celebrate the power of vulvas and vaginas, and she got a standing ovation for this. Yeah, woo! Yeah, I have those genitals, yeah! Again, why does every single group of women end up dancing around worshiping their own vaginas? I make this exact observation in last week's video on Legends of the Lost, which you all ought to go on BitChute and watch after this podcast. But yeah, speaking of environmentalism, as you all know, I ride my bike whenever I can help it. It gets me exercise, it saves me money, and it helps the environment. And yet, despite all these advantages, a lot of people genuinely despise bikers. They're like, yeah, man, fuck them bikers, man. I wish I could run them over. Fuck bikers. And for a long time now, I've never quite understood why this is. I mean, I understand if like a biker flouts the traffic rules or whatever, but I don't. And I don't think most bikers do. So why all the hate? I thought about it and I realized why people hate bikers. It's those gay little bike outfits. That's why people hate bikers. It's the outfits. They just ooze pretentiousness besides leaving nothing to the imagination whatsoever. It's like, listen, pal, you're not in the Tour de France. You're going to the store. Wear normal clothes. Hell, I mean, I bike a 25-mile round trip to my piano students, and I'll be damned if you ever catch me in one of those fruity little spandex suits. I mean, if I'm going to wear any sort of traditional bike outfit, I'm going to dress like they did in the first Tour de France. I'm going to get me one of those stripy Onion Johnny shirts and a beret and grow a handlebar mustache. That's what I'm going to do if I'm going to wear a traditional bike outfit. It's also my plan for what I want to do with golf. Like, if I ever play a full 18 holes of golf, I'm going to go full, like, Tam O'Shanter and, like, vest and, like, little culottes and stuff. Shinseki Evans says, LOL. Yes, I'm glad that some humor is happening here. Okay, time for pop culture news. Okay, The Independent, another British news rag, says, how can people hate something they once loved? They hate Lord of the Rings, fans hate Rings of Power, Trekkies hate Star Trek. Yeah, I just don't understand why people hate the new pop culture. Who could possibly hate god-awful fan fiction that's made by people that hate the source material and is deliberately being made to subvert and deconstruct the source material? I just don't know why anybody could hate that. Okay, that Amazon like Rings of Power show is literally not based on any of Tolkien's writing. They don't have the rights for it. What they have is just a bare skeleton of an appendix and nothing else to base their garbage on. All of the Star Trek shows out today are actively made by people that hate the source material, from what I gather. I mean, from especially that Star Trek Picard. From what I've heard, it's basically just an extended, like, ritual dick kicking of Captain Picard. And the less said about the Star Wars sequel trilogy, the better. Yeah, I saw The Force Awakens. I also saw Rogue One, and then I just pieced out. Like, I'm done with this. But I'm sure they'll deflect all criticism of the objective garbageness of the work by saying, no, it's just those damn Gamergate man children. They don't want to see black people in their movies. Yeah, I'm sure it's just the fact that nobody wants to see black people in Star Trek or whatever. Or maybe, just maybe, shit sucks, yo. Yeah, I'm sure that can't be it. I'm sure that me liking the Northman is a sign that I'm a Nazi fascist eugenicist or whatever, which is also an article that I've been seeing a lot recently. As a side note, the Northman's really good. Go see it. Yeah, I didn't see Top Gun Maverick, but yeah, the Northman is some good stuff. Minor spoilers. I wasn't quite expecting it to be essentially a dark, gritty retelling of Hamlet, but I was pleasantly surprised. Maybe if more people see this, it'll tell the studios that we want good cinema. Shinseki Evan says Last Jedi was the worst. I did not see it, but I've heard nothing but bad things, to be honest. I mean, like, even with Last Jedi, like, specifically, like, the female lead, like, they went out of their way to make her, like, look less attractive than she does in real life, which is kind of setting a little shows you want a message to convey here. But yeah, back to Rings of Power, Galadriel is man-spreading now. On the cover of Empire magazine, we see a promotional image from Rings of Power with the new badass Galadriel. She's not like that, you know, really powerful but, feminine and nurturing witch from the original movie. No, she's badass now. She's wearing generic armor and she's scowling. Grr, and she's sitting with her legs wide open like a dude. So, in other words, man-spreading and, being unpleasant and aggressive and all the behaviors that are bad and toxic when men do them are suddenly inspiring slay queen behaviors when women do it because, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, Jeff Westcamp says the producers know they can make money by putting out anything with the Star Wars name on it. Well, I mean, we all knew that. I mean, video gamers have been making jokes about that for years. One of my favorite webcomics, How to Make a Sprite Comic in 8 Easy Bits, which petered off and never ended, which is unfortunate. It's like legit one of my favorite webcomics ever. They actually made a joke about this. It was like, you could literally, yeah, this is back when Final Fantasy was like, not a complete garbage fire. Yeah, it was like, yeah, if you just take Pong, recolor the paddles to look like Cloud and Sephiroth, nerds will buy that shit for $50. Yeah, it's one of my. I mean, there's a what if that comic never finished. The guy who made that he's a Rutgers man like myself. It's a damn shame he never finished it, but I digress. But yeah, speaking of Middle Earth and all this grim North stuff, here's a little bit of anthropology news for you, but it also ties into the pop culture. Sorry. The Stafford Road Man, one of the earliest Saxon migration skeletons found in the UK, dating from about 500 AD. He was dug up in the 80s, and they recently did a recreation of his face. They used 3D modeling to recreate his face, and he looks exactly like David Crosby, like identical. Then again, I suppose you could say that the David Crosby look was just kind of the look that the early Anglo-Saxons had. The long hair that was somehow kind of balding in the front. The droopy mustache. Yeah, he's very Crosby looking. Okay, Twitter's silliness time. A woman named Sarah Rodo, who is sexually attracted to airplanes, wants to marry a scale model of a Boeing 737. And here I was thinking it was just dudes who were attracted to vehicles. There was that man in Georgia who married his car, wasn't there? So, I guess sisters are doing it for themselves and marrying inanimate objects. Anyway, we're approaching the end of my prepared remarks. Spoilers, IGN continues to be ass at playing video games. The Sonic Frontiers trailer, it was 7 minutes of gameplay and it was terrible. I mean, mainly, the game, the people playing the game were doing terrible at it. I mean, the game looks like garbage too, but yeah, why do video game publications hire people that can't play video games? I don't understand why they do this. But yeah, like I said, that game looks like crap. Hey, Sonic team, can you guys like stop? Because it seems like the fans are cleaning your clocks in terms of making actually good games. Like Sonic Mania, that game kicked ass. When was the last official Sonic game that wasn't garbage? You asked me, the answer was Sonic CD in 1995. You know, the franchise still has life in it. I did like the movies, actually. The fan games are good, but the official team has kind of lost the knack for it. And yes, I said knack with pun fully intended. Wait, or is he officially Fang the Sniper? Whatever, I don't care. Sonic team, maybe it's time to hang up the gloves. The white cartoon gloves. Hang them up. Okay, yeah, so that is officially the end of my prepared remarks. If you people want to say something, say it now. If not, I will be heading out. Got a busy day ahead of me. Yeah, 3 music lessons to do, and then meeting a chick at night. Hopefully, this one isn't going to lie about having a kid like the last one. Okay, I will give you a couple minutes to, say whatever you got to say. Okay, there was anything to say. So, for Larsen Halleck, I'm Larsen Halleck. Hope you enjoy the stream. Enjoy the video tomorrow, and you all have a good